Am I the arsehole for not wanting a relationship with my parents now that they've cut me off? Story time. So my parents do pretty well, and when I was going through the student finance system, I found out that I could only get the lowest amount because of how much money they earn, which is just over £3,000 a year. I just find it so bizarre that there's this assumption that your parents will just help you out. Like, some people don't get that. I'm on a high intensity course, right? And I wasn't too sure how I was going to juggle schooling, working, studying. So when I found out about how much money I was entitled to, I told my parents that I would rather take the next year off and save up and go to my first choice school or go to my second choice school now. I just would not be able to afford to live in the city that my first choice was in. So where is my parents said that they would pay for my rent if I went to my first choice school on schedule, aka this year, which I was like, brilliant, worked for the both of us. So they set me up in this gorgeous studio apartment in the city. So all I would have to do now is get a little part-time job to cover the cost of food and bills. Then 2 months ago, they called me and told me that they thought I was relying on them too much. They said that they felt it was about time that I find out what the real world was like and that I find my own way. They said that they were going to cover me till the end of the month, and then after that, I was on my own. They said that they were still my parents and that they loved me and they hoped that we could stay in touch as much as possible. So now I had 11 days notice of when my rent would be stopped being paid, my phone bill would stop being paid. I went to my uni and begged them to help me with some emergency housing, but they said I had no proof that my parents had actually cut me off. So I emailed my parents asking if they could write an email to the school to tell them that they had actually cut me off financially. They said no. I asked work if I could pick up more shifts to help pay, but they said due to my contract they couldn't give me anything. So I am now sleeping on my best friend's sofa and I'm looking for a second job. I hadn't heard anything from them in a little while actually, and then on Facebook I got a message from my dad saying that they were both really disappointed that I hadn't called for my mum's birthday. Oh, are you disappointed? So am I. So I just gave it to them straight. I was like, listen, you've done me so dirty. I can't have a relationship with people that disrespect me and leave me in the position that you have left me in. I'm getting a bunch of messages from them. My brother's even got involved and asking if I could reconsider my decision. And my friend is saying that I shouldn't feel bad, but I feel so bloody guilty. Am I the arsehole for telling a pregnant woman to sit on the ground instead of giving up my seat? Story time. My nephews both graduated from high school this morning. We're both really, really close with each other, so I wanted to sit right at the front. I did a bit of an embarrassing thing and I camped out for a little bit of the morning. I just bought my folding camping chair. I watched some little Netflix things whilst I was waiting. So about 40 minutes before the school opened, a pregnant woman came up next to me. She did somewhat push in, but she was with a guy who I am assuming is like her partner. And within 5 minutes of being stood there, she asked me if she could have my chair. And she made it quite clear that she was going to have trouble to stand for the whole time. And I was like, no, sorry, I kind of need it more. For context, I'd had some surgery on both of my knees not too long ago, and then 2 minutes later, she asked me the same thing again. So again, I gave her the same answer. She then asked me every 2 or 3 minutes after that, and I'm not gonna lie, it was getting very, very annoying. Even to the point where she asked her partner to tell me to give up my chair. Like, oh no, her man's asked me now, I must give it up. Oh, weirdo. At this point, I stopped problem solving for this couple, and I'm like, maybe you could go and sit in the car. And this is when her partner just straight up calls me an arsehole. But to be fair, after this, he did just leave me alone.
Today I messed up by not realizing that my shoulder has been out of place for years. Okay, so a few years ago, I injured my shoulder doing some dumb activity that I don't remember. I thought at the time that I tore my rotator cuff because my shoulder was really hurting and I couldn't move it fully. Anytime I raised my arm, it wouldn't let me go past a certain point without a lot of pain. I didn't use it very much for about a month and tried to heal myself due to not being able to afford going to the doctor. And that actually seemed to help it. The pain went away when I wasn't using it, and I thought that my injury was finally healing. Yay! I started working out and my shoulder pain came back with a vengeance. But I was stubborn. I wasn't gonna let my injury hold me back. I pushed through the pain because I figured that if my shoulder got stronger, the muscles being built up would compensate for the tear, and eventually I wouldn't even notice it there, right? So that's what I did, and it actually worked a lot better than I expected it to. Over time, through working out, I noticed the pain less and less, and it stopped being something that I thought about every time it started hurting. I still had a limited range of motion, but I stopped noticing that as well. I got so used to it that I figured it had healed. I didn't notice the pain when I worked out, even though it was still there. When I got into heavier weights, my shoulder would almost move. It would pop a lot. I just associated that with it being normal due to a previous injury. And then my girlfriend wanted to learn some cool dancing dips. We would practice me flinging her around, dipping her, general dance moves. Well, we weren't fully sober and were just messing around and trying things we hadn't before. Being overly confident with new tricks in our inebriated state and shit. I tried something new and didn't realize I was close to an obstacle. If I had continued, I would have booped her head into it. So to save her the pain, I instinctively moved her out of harm's way at the expense of my balance. I fell hard on my shoulder. Both my hands were on her, and I felt my shoulder dislocate, and then an immediate pop back into place. It hurt way less than I imagined a dislocation to feel. But I wasn't even thinking about the pain. My shoulder had suddenly gotten its full range of motion back. Not only could I move it up and back, a motion previously impossible, but I could do it without any pain or popping. I'm such a dumbass, y'all. Am I in the wrong for going through my friend's closet to find my wedding dress? 2 years ago, my husband and I were doing some renovations to our house. I didn't want my wedding dress to get damaged or lost in the process, which, considering we did lose a few things during the renovation, I was right to be concerned. My friend offered to keep it in her closet until the renovations were done. After we finished, I asked my friend for the dress back. She kept saying that she'd get it back to me. I kept asking and she kept making excuses. I found it weird. Now, my sister is getting married and she wanted to wear the dress. This was our mother's dress and we always agreed that we'd wear it. I told my friend that I needed it back. She claimed that she couldn't find it. I was perplexed because how does it just get up and walk away? She apologized and offered to pay me the cost of the dress, which I turned down because it wasn't about money. The dress was sentimental and I felt terrible that my sister couldn't wear it. My friend and her husband went away. I was there to water their plants and feed their dogs. That's when I decided to go look myself. The closet was very clustered. I eventually found the dress. I can totally believe that she missed where it was and she wasn't being malicious in the slightest. The box was tucked behind a few larger ones containing seasonal clothes. I texted her saying, I found the dress. Instead of being happy for me, she asked why I rummaged through her closet. I said I just wanted to double check. She told me that I had no right to go through her things. I said that because of her clutter, my sister almost didn't get to wear the dress that she always dreamed of. My friend told me that I could have asked her to look again, but I pointed out it took her 2 years to even look in the first place. So am I in the wrong?
My 38 female husband, 43 male, refuses to give up his gym girlfriend or even talk about the issue. On Father's Day, I noticed my husband texting and smiling with someone, ignoring or not seeing me when I invited him to the table for breakfast. I got closer so he could notice me and saw he was texting an unknown woman. We've been married for 4 years and have a preschooler and a 1-year-old. I didn't bring it up besides asking, who is that? Since my mom was in town visiting. When I mentioned it later, I said that I didn't know making friends of the opposite sex and not saying anything was okay for us. He didn't volunteer anything, but when pressed further, mentioned that he'd been working out with her, which I know is 3 to 4 days a week, for 2 to 3 hours before work most mornings. He ended up admitting he didn't tell me about her because he knew I'd be mad. Moreover, that he'll be working out with whoever he wants. Fast forward several one-sided, vulnerable conversations, and 2 months after a lot of feeling sick to my stomach and sleepless nights, I finally laid it out. I didn't give him an ultimatum, I simply told him I can't sleep, that I feel heartbroken and constantly concerned, that if I was doing the same, he'd feel awful. And crickets. I asked how long it was going to last and was met with, quote, "There's no sign-up sheet in the gym." I told him I can't imagine continuing our relationship feeling like this and needed to know in words how he felt. He reported feeling the same, that I'm his wife and he loves me. My boundary is unacknowledged and so far unenforced. It's not that I think he'd put his dick in her yet. It's that he won't budge or say anything knowing I'm hurting. I feel like I'm getting more heartbroken daily. The impulse to check his phone is hard to resist at times. I don't want to leave, but I need more than this lack of response from him. At no point have I asked him to stop going to the gym or working out with her. I told him I wouldn't ask that he's free to do what he likes, but that he should think of something he's comfortable with to address the issue and rebuild trust. I suggested having her over for dinner. You can guess how that went. He said nothing.
Storytime about how my boyfriend was seeing another girl behind my back. So a little background information, I was living with my dad and I had just started a new school and I became really good friends with this group of kids. And in our friend group, there was this boy who we're going to call Alex. And him and I hit it off like right away. We had been talking for 2 months. And by the way, during this whole time, his friends were telling me how much he loved me and how much he wanted to be with me. So eventually him and I started dating. And of course, like any other tragic love story, I had to move far away because I had to go live with my mom, blah, 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 blah. But since I would visit my dad for the holidays, him and I would still be able to see each other sometimes, which is pretty good for a long distance relationship, especially when you're in school. So I told him about how I had to move. and he was really sad, but he said that I can trust him. Red flag number 1, because why would you say that in the first place? There should be no reason on why I have to, quote, trust you to be loyal when I'm away. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend was seeing another girl behind my back. So like I said, I told him that we were going to have to do long distance, and he was sad, but then he said that he could trust me. And like I said before, why the hell would I have to trust you? Because you should just be loyal in general, duh. So I'm like, hey, I want to spend time with you before I leave. Can we hang out? And he was like, oh, sorry, I have plans, but we can hang out later tonight. So I was like, okay, whatever. And a few hours go by. I never get a text from him or a call, nothing. So I text him and he's like, sorry, I forgot. So I'm really sad right now, but I forgave him. Quick note here, ladies, if he wanted to, he would have canceled his plans if he really wanted to see you. Anyway, so I move and fast forward 2 to 3 weeks, and Alex and I literally have only been texting, no calls, nothing like that. So I'm talking to one of his friends, and one of his friends tells me that he's been talking to this other girl, and he's been telling everybody that he's been wanting to break up with me for weeks because he wants to date her instead, like for part 3. Part 3 about how my boyfriend was seeing another girl behind my back. So like I said, I was talking to his friend, and his friend said that he's been talking to this girl for 2 to 3 weeks about the time that I've been gone. And he's been telling everybody about how he wants to break up with me for her. So of course I'm sad and crying, and I confront him, and he says, oh, she's just a friend, blah, blah, blah. So I press the issue, and then he tells me that he lost feelings for me weeks ago. And that the reason why he didn't tell me was because he didn't want to hurt my feelings. Yet he led me on for 2 to 3 weeks. Like, how does that work, Alex? How? Anyway, so I blocked him because there's no way in hell that I'm going to keep talking to a guy that was making fun of me with his friends and telling everybody around him that he wanted to break up with me. That's embarrassing.
Am I the arsehole for telling my ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend to stop treating me like a surrogate? Story time. So I was with this guy called Steve for 3 months before he decided he was going to go back to his ex, who we'll call Amy. Wow, that's a lot. So just after we broke up, I found out that I was pregnant and I was 24 weeks along. I told Steve about it, he was over the moon, and it turned out that Amy couldn't have kids due to some health situations that she was going through. And I knew that Steve had always wanted to be a dad, so I knew that this would mean a lot to him. We decided that we wouldn't get back together and he would stay with Amy. Anyway, we found out on our first scan that I was actually having twins. He told Amy, and Amy did not take this news well. So one day I get a text from Amy, and she's like, please, can you come over to our place? And she said that she'd really like to be a part of the pregnancy as much as possible because she would eventually be stepmom to the twins. She decided that she wanted to give me advice on how to have a home birth, a certain way to feed the babies, and what they would want to call her when they came. I was a little bit shocked by all of this because I was like, oh, my pregnancy, like my birth, I'll make my own choices. So I decided it'd be best to leave. She didn't stop though. She texted me every day asking what I was eating, how much I was exercising, what I was doing at work. She even joined a genetics counselling meeting with me and tried to make it all about her family history. Like, I'm not too really sure how you think this works, Amy, but there's none of your DNA going on here. And when it was time for a really important scan, Steve wanted Amy to come with me instead of him. But I was like, no. At this meeting, I found out the gender and I shared it on my social media, as everybody does. But then Amy posted a pregnancy announcement about how she was going to have babies, just in a different way. And this really flipping bothered me, but of course I didn't really want to say anything. Amy even went as far as to have a gender reveal party for herself, and she put it online. But I hadn't been invited to this gender reveal. She is even planning a baby shower. I was getting really wound up, so I commented on a post telling her to stop treating me like I'm a surrogate, and I very much reminded her that the children would not be hers when they arrived. I then messaged Steve and I was like, listen, I'm not going to come round again because I need to sort some things out legally here because this woman is scaring me. And that now Steve would not be invited to the birth and my mum would be my only birthing partner. Now Steve and Amy's parents are calling me names, so what do you think?
I'm 24 and I've been dating my boyfriend for 5 years now. We grew up together as neighbors and were friends for a couple years before dating. I love him so much and I want to marry him. His family is great and I adore them all, and he's great with my family too. He also formed a great relationship with my younger sister who's 21. The issue is that I think their bond is too close. My boyfriend and I live together, but he spends a lot of time with her. Albeit I am sort of busy. I'm currently in grad school for engineering, so I have to go to my classes. My boyfriend works full time. My sister is currently taking a gap year, but that 1 year has extended from when she was 18. She comes over when I'm in seminars and classes. They have tons of inside jokes and share the same sense of humor and taste in movies. It makes me feel left out, but when I try to include myself, they both stop being so enthusiastic and act like it's super super awkward to have me there. My sister and I were close growing up, but started drifting when I went to uni. When my boyfriend isn't there and I talk to her, she becomes kind of cold and sometimes says rude things. Once she told me to my face that I'm not good enough for him and that he deserves better, which made me cry for a couple of days. He also gets her gifts for the most random achievements, like he got her a present for making it through the week even though she doesn't even do anything. She currently isn't working or trying to pursue a hobby or interest. She's just taking it easy, in her own words. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad my boyfriend and sister are friends, but my major problem is that my boyfriend tells her everything. Literally everything. He tells her things that he doesn't tell me and talks to her about me and our relationship. She knows all of our issues and good parts to a level of detail that I wouldn't even tell my closest friends or parents. She even knows the grades I got on my midterms and finals and what I think about my manager. I work part-time to contribute to our apartment, but also get paid for my research, which goes towards our needs as well, which I feel is unnecessary for her to know since I didn't tell her myself. I asked him to step back a bit and stop telling her things about me and our relationship, but he was shocked and told me that I'm an asshole for even requesting it. Now I feel guilty. So am I the asshole? Am I in the wrong for not doing anything to prevent my female 35 husband, male 35, from cheating with his work wifey, female 25? So I met work wifey last Thursday at a Christmas party. She introduced herself as work wifey and she called my husband work hubby and told that to everyone. When she saw me, she just exclaimed, "Oh, we're like two totally different people. How weird is that?" Not weird at all. We don't know each other. No, I mean like because X and I get along so well, like we totally get each other and have a lot in common, like totally. That's why he's like my work hubby. I didn't know what a manic pixie dream girl was, but apparently she was one and apparently it was something to brag about. I just found the whole thing very amusing, but on our way home, it wasn't very amusing anymore. I felt a little bit of an ick watching my husband's profile, wondering what was going on in his head. He has told me about his new colleague that he got along with. He told me that she was great at her job and that she was a gamer like him. I don't even know how to hold a joystick properly. I know that they text a lot too, even on weekends. I never thought about that before now. I found myself sat on the toilet seat at 3:30 in the morning, scrolling through his phone in total silence not to wake him up. She's very youthful and quirky. Her words, not mine. She's very funny too. Again, her words, not mine. She calls him hubs and hubby in every text. And in one text, she warned him that men fall easily for her and that she just wanted to give him a heads up. I guess it's because she's a youthful, quirky, funny, maniac, pixie dream gamer girl. Her last text was from the same evening that we left. She wrote that she was pissed that he didn't say goodbye before leaving, and I was a bit surprising to her because she didn't expect him to have this type. OMG, your wife is so boring, I didn't expect that. I felt ashamed when I came to my senses, cowering over his phone and reading very weird juvenile messages instead of being sound asleep beside my husband that makes me safe in our relationship, but I couldn't help but agree with manic wifey in some parts. Why is he continually engaging with her? He doesn't flirt back nor does he initiate conversations, but he just doesn't really shut her down. My husband can be stupid and not noticing flirting, but I feel that this is just beyond stupid. Does he enjoy the attention or worse? Does he reciprocate it? In that case, she's not wrong. What is he doing with someone like me who's totally different from whatever is going on between them? Today, I had my usual brunch with my mom, aunt, sister, and sister-in-law. They said I was an a-hole for not nipping it in the bud, and by it they mean the budding affair. I disagreed and tried to explain that I couldn't be in a relationship where I needed to stand guard to keep away my temptations. I want a marriage where he's with me because he wants to be with me, and if he cheats then he doesn't want to be with me. My mother was the one who got the most upset and called me a moron and said I'm an a-hole and said that this wasn't the mature thing to do. I need to tell my husband to end his friendship because if I didn't, then I let him cheat. So am I in the wrong?